Hi, and welcome to this video series, How to Solve Enterprise AI, with me, Errol Koolmeister, Executive AI and Data Advisor, and
me, Luka Crnkovic-Friis, CEO and founder of Peltarion.
In this first episode, we'll discuss how to jumpstart the AI-driven transformation in your company. So let's start with the definition, AI-driven transformation. Luka, what is the AI-driven transformation?
It's a good question. I think the best thing is to take an analogy. Take electrification 100 years ago. That was all about, from a company point of view, getting use of electricity in all parts of the department, making new businesses. With AI, it's the same. It's sort of finding the structured process in which way you can get value from AI across your organization. Errol, how would you differentiate AI transformation from digital transformation?
Well, I think it's a big difference. I mean, digital transformation is something many companies have tried to do now for quite a long time. I differentiate away from AI-driven transformation because it's about either optimizing your existing processes with AI, so making better return on investment, or doing new business model with the help of AI and data. So it's really about changing decision-making in your company to trust the data and the AI that you're able to do. AI is no longer a competitive factor in my point of view. It is a hygiene factor. Those that don't do it, they will lag behind. Do you agree?
Fully agree. And there's also a much sharper focus on ROI, on actually getting value out of it. When people are talking about digital transformation and digitalization, they were talking about building infrastructure, building structure, which is fine and well, but it's not actually the important thing, which is actually getting the value out of the technology.
I think value, you're spot on here. I think starting with structure is extremely hard. I don't know how many companies I've been in, and I always go in and I say, okay, where are you? What are you doing? And the big problem is that it tends to be overbuilding a platform right now, or we're doing X, Y, and Z, and then we'll start delivering value. Focusing on value shift away from being perfect in everything that you do and starting to focus on the results instead. So let me then start with asking you, why is now the right time? Why haven't we seen the value? Because AI has been around for a while. Why right now should companies start focusing on these things?
So in a way, most companies have had some sort of digitalization journey where some basic infrastructure is in place. They've got some data. And at the same time, the algorithms and that exist today are very powerful and can add value that hasn't been possible to reach before. And third, there are now platforms that allow you to do this rapidly and quickly without actually making these massive infrastructure investments.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing. I remember starting out in the field like 15 years ago. Feels like yesterday. When I started, I was a data scientist, even though the term data scientist wasn't around. But I went straight to the most advanced algorithms. A few years ago, I read something published by Google that you should start with something simple, build the surrounding end-to-end pipelines, and then iterate. Would you agree with that statement?
Fully. Usually when we talk to customers, we line up 5 criteria for what they should focus on. One is to pick a problem that has business value. That's basic. The second, where they can find data, where easily or inexpensively. So it can't be too much work. The third is that they should aim to deploy, really to get stuff into production so that you don't end up in a POC graveyard. The fourth is that you should start with low-hanging fruit, meaning don't do something that others have proven that it will work. Don't go off in the very advanced end. Start with something simple. Low-hanging fruit, it has to be fruit, but low-hanging. And fifth, get your domain experts involved.
Being a big fan of fruits myself, I think I want to shift again a little bit more topic because I fully agree with all of those points. But one of the big problems I see with transformation, because this is not just doing proof of concept, one uses. Transformation is changing the entire company, which sounds like a very huge task for a specific apartment here and there. who should start driving these things? Because the first usual hires that I've seen out in the organization is usually a data scientist, usually somebody with a strong mathematical background. And then they go off, and then 2 years later, they're still in the research stage. So who should start driving these type of transformations, do you think?
It very much depends on the company. If there has been a strategy behind, which we'll talk in the next episode, then there has been some central thought about how to go about it, how to connect the business units with any data scientists you hire. If you don't have that, then you're probably going to need some external help to help you guide on that process. But ultimately, your starting point should always be your actual business, so that you don't build up theoretical projects out in the vacuum, but actually do something that creates value.
Yeah. I think this is a super interesting, and I mean, you're always going to get, from me at least, a consultancy answer. It depends, which is an answer I love to give. Yeah. But it truly depends. But what I think we can conclude, it's not a one-person job any longer. There needs to be clear roadmaps in place, at least when you're getting serious. It needs to be clear commitment in place. However, the big difference that I see these days compared to digital transformations, and if you're listening into this, you're probably from an enterprise, you're interested in learning about enterprises. In the past, you've seen large-scale programs like, we're going to change an entire platform of the company. It's going to take 5 years and it's not going to deliver. I can tell you as much. Incremental value deliver. What are your thoughts on that? Trying to get something out earlier to prove ROI rather than seeing it in 5 years. Any thought on that?
It's the only way to go. Because even if you do the 5-year investment and all that, you're going to get it wrong. Guaranteed to get it wrong. You really have to do it incrementally. You really have to start with a small set of problems that you solve, prove value, use that proof to build it out. Yeah. And it's been, I think from Peltarion side, it's also been a lesson that we've learned over the past years on sort of how enterprises evolve. And ultimately, the only really successful way we have found to interact with enterprise and get them to get value has been starting on the small scale and then scaling it up.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good observation as well. On the other side, on the enterprise side, that's a really scary thing to talk about, because the organizational structures that I'm used to coming from large enterprises is you do 3 to 5 years investment planning. And then some crazy department over here that wants to do AI comes and say, hey, I'm not going to give you a detailed 3 to 5 year roadmap because I have no idea what's going to be successful. However, I do want the organization to change the organizational structure. I do want you to change how you fund new things that we want to do. And by the way, I want full flexibility on the technology choices that I'm making, as long as I adhere to some guidelines and principles. That's super scary if you're sitting in a CTO, CIO, CDO type of role, having no clear overview what's going to happen. So it's a mindset shift as well. So what is the objective with the things that the teams want to do, and what are the key results that we're going to measure around it? So from my point of view, I think that that's the only way forward, not knowing everything.
No, I fully agree. And because there is no way of knowing everything. But again, we'll talk in the next episode. I think if you have a good strategy, so you have a good framework of how you're gonna approach it, then you really don't need to fill out all of the details and all of the sort of specifics that's gonna be there. That has to evolve as the AI maturity in your company evolves.
I think one thing we can agree upon here is that the only constant in the world is change itself. Yeah. And I think this why we're creating this video series now is just to outline all of these different things that you need to think about when you're doing and jump-starting the AI-driven transformation. I think we're coming almost to the end of this short episode. Any final thoughts that you have, Luka?
I think we captured it pretty well. So the core is like, do it small, do it quickly, get out there, do stuff, make things that are valuable to the business, and then scale it up from there. And then, of course, watch the next episode to learn about strategy. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So from my point of view, AI, it is more than just the algorithms. I like to say that AI is the small part, technology is a little bit bigger, but the majority of things you're going to do if you're transforming your company is business transformation. That has shifted my mindset completely the last few years coming from a technical background.
I want to see AI at scale. I want to be here enabling this next transformative change that is equal, in my opinion, to the Industrial Revolution. In addition to that, I think that the key success factor that we've been discussing now is focus on value. Structure comes later. Prove, get return on investment on the early use cases, and then start scaling. And then the third and final thing is that the organization is going to need to change at some point. But let's start with one thing at a time. When you're proven successful, then you're going to get your stakeholders buy-in. Success has 1,000 fathers and failure has none. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.